I placed some lights in the kitchen, like so, inside the units to illuminate the frosted glass. And that was basically it. I have also added just a few wee extra props which I have created. Some frying pans in the kitchen, light switches, just a few wee props to fill out the space. So feel free to recreate some of these props or your own for the scene. So if we go to our top viewport, we're going to go to Create, Cameras, and we'll select V-Ray Camera. If you select V-Ray Physical Camera, we're going to click and drag this in our scene, like so. So if you press C on your keyboard, you go into that camera. And as we are in quite a tall space, I'm going to change the resolution. So if we go to Render Setup, and go to your output size, I'm just going to alter the image aspect. We'll change this to 0.9. I'm going to change the width and the height. So just lock that there. If you press Shift F on your keyboard, it'll turn on your safe frame, like so. So I'm just going to use the dolly camera function in the bottom right, just to pull it back, like so. You can just use your middle mouse button and move the camera around until you get a pretty decent position. Maybe something like that, or round about there. You can't really see the pendant light, so I'm going to select this and just move it in the scene. Something like that. Okay, so to select your camera, if you select in the top left here and go to Select Camera, if you go to your Modify section, we can now alter some of the camera settings. Generally, with the F number of the camera, I start off between 4 and 5 for interiors. For this camera I'm going to put it to 5.2. I'm going to turn off vignetting because we can use it, create this in Photoshop, gives a bit more control, whereas if it's embedded into the image, we don't really have that control, so let's turn that off. My white balance I'm going to set to neutral, and just leave the shutter speed and film speed as is. At this point you don't really want to start messing about with your environment light, so if your scene comes out too dark or too light, just use the camera settings. So just something like that will be good. So what we'll do is we'll set up another camera. So just go back to your Create Panel, Cameras, V-Ray and Physical Camera. I'll just drag another camera into shot. Again, press C, and as we're selecting this camera, we'll go into that view. And I'm just going to set it next to this table lamp here, like so. So what we're going to do here is basically use some depth of field on the camera to blur out the foreground. So go with something like that. If you select your camera, I will just change some of these options in here. So F number will stay as the previous camera, and this time we're going to turn on depth of field. So if you select depth of field and just turn on your bokeh effects. So if we go to the top viewport of this camera and select your target, I'm just going to drag this to what I want to be in my main focus. So on the console table will be the main focus. Select the camera again, and what's going to happen here is you can see this line here of the camera. This will be pretty much blurred, so we'll get the light will be blurred here and it'll fade off to our main focus of the console table. So if we were to move this target around, for example, you can see this would be pretty much kind of blurred in the foreground and our main focus would be over here. Just move this back to the console table. So we go back into this camera. Just adjust this slightly. Just using the functions down the bottom right. So something like that. We know here with depth of field on, we'll get this area will be blurred, it's right in the foreground, and we'll just focus over here at the console table. So I'm pretty happy with these two cameras. So what we'll do next is we'll start to look at the render settings.